Hey everybody, we're on our way to Canon's head office for an interview with Click Magazine, and we're going to drop by and hijack their photo video product manager Roger Machin for an impromptu interview on the Canon 5D Mark IV.
Your shirt looks a bit dirty, don't you think you want to change it? See Roger today.
So one thing that's obviously going to get everyone very excited is the ability to adjust sharpness.
Ooh, yes. The dual pixel RAW.
Dual pixel RAW and all of those implications. Now that's going to set tongues wagging.
It's another tool. Don't see it as the answer to absolutely everything, because it changes a lot of specs on the camera. You slow the camera down dramatically.
To 1 frame a second.
No, it depends on what other settings you've combined with it.
Okay.
If you've got noise reduction and diffraction control, etc., it can go as slow as that. But if you've got majority of your settings off and you just shoot dual pixel RAW, you still get about 3 or 4 frames a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very comfortable.
It's not as much as 7,
File
but
size remains the same?
file size doubles.
Doubles?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the standard file size is around about 30 meg. The dual pixel RAW file is 60 meg, give or take.
This is the same technology as what is in the other dual pixel autofocus cameras.
Exactly. We launched it on the 70D. It's in the 7D2. It's in the C300 Mark II. It's in the C100 Mark II cinema cameras, and as I say, for the first time now on 5D4.
So that's
we also put it into the 1DX2, and it's going to be a standard moving
standard.
forward.
Yeah.
So 2 microsites for every single pixel, feeding information to the autofocus sensor. So everybody uses phase detection or some kind of different type of thing, but using 2 microsites per pixel to help with autofocus in live view. Nobody else is using it.
Okay.
So that is unique to us. But again, that's for focus in live view. Okay. When you're shooting dual pixel RAW, it's not live view. Okay. It's a standard RAW file, and it saves that standard RAW file as a normal RAW. But what it also does, it saves a second file with just information from one of the microsites attached to it. Okay, and what you can then do is go into the software afterwards, and you can bring up that dual pixel RAW file, and you then have a couple of sliders you can then change. The couple of sliders can then reference that second microsite information, and it allows you to adjust points of sharpness slightly. I mean, it's really, really, really tiny. What? You seem surprised. So, number one, you can adjust your exact point of sharpness. And it's minute, and it works better at longer focal lengths, works better at shallower depth of fields than 5.6. And if you find that you're sharp on the nose and slightly soft on the eyes, you can come back a little bit, within reason. And again, it's a micro adjustment. You're acting surprised. It's a micro adjustment. It's very similar to the micro adjustment you would have on the file afterwards. And that's one option. The other option is changing your bokeh. So if you've got something between you and your subject that's basically maybe a branch or a blade of grass or something like that that's obscuring an eye, you can move it in minute moves, minute. So you could have something that, like a blade of grass across a leopard's eye. You could just do that, so it's less distracting. Okay, that's the second one. And the third one is about ghosting. So if you've got a bright source of light and you've got some hexagons or like those sort of rainbow type curves across the frame, you can reduce them a little.
I think the other thing that would work in a lot of people's favor. I'm old school when it comes to focus. I've got a center focusing point.
Yeah.
I focus and I recompose. I focus and I recompose.
Ooh.
And I know a lot of people tend to do that. Focus, recompose the whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to, because I think I lose a lot of my shots when I do that.
Yes.
That I just come out when I recompose.
Because of the curvature of the focus,
Yes.
focal plane feeds information to the autofocus system when shooting stills, and for video, it's absolutely fantastic. And that's the thing. It doesn't sound like a big thing, but in my mind, I think that's one of the game changers. That dual pixel autofocus system in live view, dual pixel autofocus for video, is a game changer. We know the vast majority of footage that's submitted to broadcast houses that's been shot on SLR is rejected purely because it's out of focus. When I say vast majority, I'm talking in the tune of 80%. We heard the stat, I think, about a year and a half ago from BBC. 80% of what they got from 5D2 shots on SLR just rejected out of hand because of autofocus. And then autofocus came along in SLRs, and it wasn't great till dual pixel came along. And it is that good that we've put it on everything from the flagship C300 Mark II all the way down to the 70D. It is that good. And as I say, when you double whammy the face tracking on that as well.
Okay. If you've selected a face and it's following you,
yes.
and you step out of shot,
yes.
and you step back into shot, is it still remembering you, or has it lost focus?
Wow. For the most part, it'll lose focus. It depends, because it's going to look for another face. So if you step out of shot, it looks for another face, the nearest other face. If there are no other faces, it will default to whatever autofocus it can. It'll find a subject to focus on. When that face comes back in, it'll jump to that face instantaneously. Don't underestimate that. I think it's one of the greatest things, the autofocus in video. It is. It's an astonishing thing.
It's massive.
Yeah, and to have it at 5D level camera is really, 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 really big. And it's one of the subtle changes from 5D3 to 5D4 that might just be sort of, oh, it's now got the dual pixel autofocus system. Yeah, that's a big. We've taken it from 6 frames a second to 7. Again, only 1 frame a second. Well, only 1 frame a second with 50% more pixels. That's quite substantial. Wi-Fi is slow, make no mistake.
Sure.
You're also moving 30 million pixels in a RAW file via Wi-Fi. The further you are away, the more interference, the longer it's going to take. But what we saw earlier, those RAW files came in 10 seconds, give or take, per image.
I guess, more or less.
It's not grease lightning by any stretch of the imagination.
Asking you if there's any one factor that sells it to people. I'm still so damn interested to see what the 30 million pixels looks like.
Sure.
And it's because I have the perspective of 21 million pixels and I have the perspective of 50 million pixels.
Like you were just saying, 5D3 looks a bit bitsy and 5DS has got so much more detail. This is less of a shock between the two. And I think you'll be very, very pleasantly surprised by how close this is to 5DSR and how much it is a step up from the 5D3.
So that's all good. Video.
Yes.
4K is it's sampling the 4K from what area of the sensor, and what does it do to the lenses?
It's a crop. It's around about a 1.6, 1.7 crop, and obviously your wide angles become a little bit of an issue.
But we're used to that
in
so many other form factors. So it's almost a Super 35.
It's slightly smaller than the Super 35.
ISO levels?
ISO expandable up to 102,000, but the native level from 100 to 32,000, which is a step up from 5D3. It's not the be all and end all that you've got an expanded range. One of the best things about it is we've taken the algorithm that we built into the DX2, we added onto the ATD for what's known as dynamic range.
Is now expanded to 32,000.
Yeah, so the standard ISO up to 32,000 expands up to 100,000. It's a step better than the 5D3, but it's more than just a better rating at high ISO. It's got the dynamic range algorithm that we built into DX2 and ATD. So DX2 came along with a new algorithm, and the new algorithm allowed us to have what's known as better dynamic range. And what it essentially means was if you had a good exposure, you could not only bring back your highlights, but you could lift your shadows without sacrificing or without getting noise. Obviously your contrast falls away completely, but you were able to get a lot of information back without noise. And again, we've now done the same thing with the 5D4. So what you now have is an incredible RAW file that you can just pull, tweak, manipulate in pretty much any direction, and it's quite astonishing.
So that is 5D Mark IV. You all know by now that it is under that little sticker over there, from the horse's mouth.